I came home a little earlier than usual that day. The meeting I had was cut short, something about the client needing to reschedule last minute. I didn't tell my wife I was coming early. Why would I? It was one of those small, forgettable decisions that later becomes a hinge for everything that follows. When I opened the door, the house greeted me the way it always did, quiet, dim, the smell of her lavender candles already lit. But there was something off. I didn't hear music. She always played music when she was home alone, soft jazz or lo-fi beats humming through the kitchen while she made herself a smoothie or fussed with the plants she never quite managed to keep alive. I took off my shoes and stepped into the hallway. That's when I saw them, 2 black loafers neatly placed on the mat by the door. Men's loafers. Size too big to be mine. I stared at them, my mind still catching up, refusing to register what my eyes saw. They looked too new to be familiar. Then something even smaller, more subtle, struck me like ice water down the spine. Her favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim she never let me throw out, was sitting in the sink. Half-finished tea, still warm. Except she was supposed to be in Zurich. A work conference she'd been excited about for weeks. She had left that morning with her suitcase, kissed me goodbye with the same polished smile she always wore, and disappeared into what I thought was a perfectly ordinary business trip. And now her mug was here. I didn't go looking for her. I didn't call out. I didn't check the bedroom. I just stood in the kitchen, staring at that mug, letting the weight of its existence hammer something loose in my chest. I noticed then the faint scent in the air, not lavender, not her usual perfume, but something cologne-heavy, foreign. My hands didn't tremble. I didn't feel rage or heartbreak. Just cold. A strange, calculated chill that settled into my bones and told me, very clearly, something is broken. I checked my watch. 4:42 p.m. She had texted me just 20 minutes ago. Landing now. I'll call you when I get to the hotel. So unless she'd found a teleportation device, she wasn't in Zurich. She was here. And she was lying. I opened the bedroom door as quietly as I could. It was empty. The bed was untouched. The guest room, too. Bathroom, nothing. But the shower floor was wet. Not steamy. Recently used. I walked back down the hall and sat on the living room couch. The silence of the house wasn't peaceful, it felt staged. Like someone had arranged it to look normal but forgot the small details. I noticed a scratch on the inside of her armchair, one that hadn't been there yesterday. A wine glass on the coffee table, faint lip marks. Another glass beside it. I closed my eyes and sat there for a long while, breathing in the deception. My thoughts weren't spiraling. They were arranging themselves, neatly, like files in a cabinet. I wasn't going to ask questions. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to demand anything. I was just going to pay attention. Wait. Let it come to me. Because it always does. A buzzing noise interrupted my stillness, her phone. She must have forgotten it in her rush. I looked at the screen. A message lit it up from a contact saved as Andre Yoga. Just one word. Already miss you. I didn't unlock the phone. I didn't need to. That single message, in that context, told me everything I needed to know. Yoga. She never took yoga. Claimed she was too stiff. Laughed at the idea of it. Andre must be quite the instructor. I stood, looked around the house one last time, and picked up her phone. I placed it neatly beside the empty mug in the sink. Side by side. Truth and proof. I looked at those black loafers again as I left, still perfectly placed, like the man who wore them didn't want to disturb the order of the home he didn't belong to. I shut the door behind me and stood on the porch, the autumn air cool against my face. There was no storm inside me. No fury. Only clarity. That terrifying calmness people talk about before they do something irreversible. She thought she was clever. She thought she was careful. She wasn't. And now I had the first piece of the puzzle. The first crack in the perfect mask. And I wasn't going to confront her. No. That would be too easy. She wouldn't even see it coming. Our life looked perfect from the outside. Maybe even from the inside, if you didn't look too closely. We had our routines, morning coffee together, shared grocery runs, Friday movie nights. There was a rhythm to it all, a comforting repetition that gave me the illusion of stability. She always smiled at the right moments, laughed at the right jokes, touched my arm when she wanted to show affection. But now, looking back, I realize it wasn't real. It was a performance. And I had front row seats without knowing the play had changed. The first shift was so subtle I didn't even register it. She started going to sleep earlier. No more late-night talks in bed. No more spontaneous moments of closeness. When I asked if something was wrong, she said she was just tired. Work had been stressful. She was working on herself. "I need more time for me," she said once, casually, over breakfast, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And maybe it was. But something in the way she said it made me pause. We never did things alone. Not really. That had always been our strength. We were a team. Or so I thought. Then came the girls' nights. At first, it was once a month. Then twice. Then every weekend. "You wouldn't enjoy it anyway," she'd say with a quick kiss on the cheek and a spritz of new perfume I'd never smelled before. Expensive. Too bold for her usual taste. One night, I went to the garage to get a flashlight and noticed her gym bag in the back seat of the car. It was still zipped, but the scent hit me before I even opened it. Strong cologne, not hers. Inside, an unopened box of protection buried under workout clothes. I stood there, staring, feeling that same cold I would later come to know so well. She told me she was going to yoga with friends. I never knew protection was standard for a downward dog. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I watched. I started noticing her spending patterns. Charges on the credit card for boutiques I didn't recognize. New clothes, but she never wore them at home. A high-end lingerie store, yet I hadn't seen her change in weeks. I once asked her about a $300 charge. She smiled, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "Just a treat for myself." Self-love, babe. Her phone, once constantly buzzing with notifications and group chats, became eerily silent. No messages popped up around me anymore. One evening, I tried to send her a funny meme, only to find her Instagram story no longer visible. I checked from a friend's account. There it was, photos of cocktails, candlelit dinners, selfies with captions like, "He sees me for who I really am." Not a single mention of me. Not even a shadow in the background. One night, she came home late, past midnight. Her heels clacked too loudly against the floor, and her laughter stopped the second she saw me awake. Her hair was perfect, lipstick freshly applied. I asked her where she'd been. She said, "I needed to walk. Clear my head. Just me and the night air." She collapsed into bed fully dressed and turned away from me. I didn't ask more. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her fake breaths. Once, during laundry, I found a blouse I didn't recognize. Designer label. Smelled like cigar smoke and aftershave. I asked when she got it. She said it was a gift from a friend. "A girl thing," she smiled. "You wouldn't understand." I smiled back. I was starting to understand too well. The scariest part wasn't the betrayal. It was how practiced she had become at hiding it. How naturally she lied. How well she maintained her role while erasing me in silence. She still kissed me goodbye every morning. Still asked if I wanted anything from the store. Still texted, "Love you" with emojis. But behind every word was distance. A glass wall. She was slipping away in plain sight, building a new life brick by brick while making sure I stayed distracted. And maybe the most painful detail of all, she looked happy, genuinely happy, lighter, as if lying to me gave her life a new kind of energy. She took selfies I never saw, went places she never told me about, laughed in ways I hadn't heard in years. Not with me, never with me, but with someone else, somewhere else. I wasn't angry yet. I was watching, waiting, studying. I was letting her dig her own grave, brick by brick, smile by smile. And I knew one thing for sure. When the moment came, I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I'd smile too, because her performance was flawless. But I had started writing a script of my own, and I was going to make sure it ended perfectly. For me, she was standing by the kitchen window, casually scrolling through her phone when it buzzed in her hand. Her body stiffened just slightly, so subtly I almost missed it. Then she forced a yawn and mumbled something about needing to use the bathroom. She took her phone with her. Nothing unusual on the surface. But she closed the door. Locked it. That was new. Our bathroom had no locks. She'd never used one before. Not even when showering. I sat perfectly still, lowering the TV volume almost instinctively. The faint hum of her voice began filtering through the wall. Quiet, quick, and strangely rehearsed. I leaned slightly to the side, catching fragments through the hallway. "You're bad." "No, he didn't notice anything. I told you he's clueless." Then a giggle. Soft, playful, foreign. I knew that giggle. It wasn't mine. I'd once earned it, years ago, back when she still saw me. Now it was someone else's reward. She exited 5 minutes later, all smiles, rubbing her temples as if she'd just finished a long work call. Stressed client, she sighed, reaching for a bottle of water. I nodded and said nothing. She poured herself a glass, completely unaware that something had shifted inside me. I was no longer confused, no longer guessing. I was watching now, actively. Every movement catalogued, every lie cross-checked in silence. That night, when she fell asleep early, again, fully dressed, her phone tucked beneath her pillow, I stayed awake. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. I opened my laptop instead, clicked on her Google account, the one she'd once synced with mine back when trust was something we never questioned. She'd forgotten about that detail. I hadn't. Location history loaded slowly, like it was dragging its feet. I traced her route from earlier that day. She told me she was going to a spa across town, meeting a friend for a facial. The map said otherwise. She never went east. She turned south, stopped for 90 minutes at a budget motel behind a gas station. No spa in sight. No friend. Just a cheap, windowless room with a flickering sign I'd driven past 100 times and never once noticed. I stared at that red dot on the map longer than I should have. Not because I was shocked, but because it confirmed something primal. She had stopped caring whether she was careful. She believed I was asleep at the wheel, that I was predictable, easy to deceive. She had no idea who I became when threatened. The next day, I watched her get ready. She took longer than usual. Lipstick with more gloss than I'd seen in weeks. New earrings. A perfume that wasn't hers. It had a muskier base, the kind I used to wear. I said nothing. She smiled, kissed my cheek, said she'd be at the gym. I smiled back. 10 minutes after she left, I checked the geolocation again. No gym. She was circling a familiar neighborhood, same motel. Routine. I didn't follow her. I didn't confront. Instead, I started to notice everything. Her coworker, Vlad, suddenly began liking her old photos from 2016, photos I hadn't seen in years. One of them was from our honeymoon. I remembered that day, sunset in Dubrovnik, her hair tangled by the sea breeze, holding a glass of wine and laughing like the world didn't exist beyond that moment. Vlad liked it twice. Unliked, then liked again. Like he wanted her to see it pop up. Wanted her to know he was watching. She'd told me he was just a nerd in finance who didn't talk to anyone. Apparently, he'd found his voice. A week later, I watched her typing on her laptop. She left the room for a second, and curiosity led me to her screen. A chat window still open. D. Foxface was the name. No surname. No context. But the messages made everything clear. Did you like the way I whispered your name last night? You should have stayed the morning after. He still has no clue. Poor thing. I memorized every word. I didn't copy or screenshot it. I didn't need evidence yet. I needed understanding. Strategy. She came back seconds later and paused when she saw me sitting beside the laptop. I looked up calmly and asked, "Everything okay?" She blinked. "Yeah, just checking email." I nodded. "Long night." "Yeah," she said. "Didn't sleep well." I smiled. She smiled back. But in her eyes, for a flicker of a second, I saw something. Hesitation, maybe. Like her mind was processing whether she'd left something open. I closed the laptop for her. "You should rest tonight," I said gently. "You've been doing too much." She touched my hand in that familiar, practiced way. "You're sweet." "I'm not. Not anymore." That night, I stood in the shower, letting the water run too hot, staring at the tiles and mapping out the path forward. She thought she was clever, that I was soft. She didn't know the kind of man she was pushing into a corner. The silence she mistook for stupidity was calculation. The patience she thought was weakness was the sharpening of blades. The real game hadn't even begun, but it would. Soon. And when it did, she would wish I had been the man she believed I was. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. Confrontation is for people who want answers. I already had mine. I just needed confirmation. And maybe something better, control. So I started watching more carefully, but not like some desperate man digging through drawers or sniffing perfume bottles. I played it like chess. Quiet. Deliberate. Calculated. First move, her office. She said she'd be working late on Tuesday, prepping for a new client pitch. Normally I'd just nod and go about my evening. Maybe order takeout and fall asleep on the couch. But this time, I ordered delivery, straight to her office building. I used her maiden name for the order. 20 minutes later, the delivery app showed delivered. I called the restaurant and asked to confirm who received it. Security returned it, the guy said. They said there's no one by that name in the building today. I thanked him and hung up slowly. She wasn't at work. That same night, I went through our shared financial records. Not looking for anything specific, just patterns. That's when I noticed it. Small, repeated transactions to a hotel chain just outside the city. Not expensive, not flashy, just quiet and convenient. Every Friday afternoon, just before yoga, the same charge. Sometimes Saturdays too. Always for just over 2 hours. Room rentals, most likely. I cross-checked with her phone's location history, syncing the timestamps. A perfect match. She wasn't just careless, she was predictable. I could have exploded right then. But instead, I smiled. Predictability is a gift. I started watching her friends, especially one Katia, the soul sister. She mentioned her name often enough to make it sound casual, but never gave details. So I went looking. Katia's social media was open and more honest than hers. A few tagged photos showed my wife in the background of places she'd never mentioned, rooftop bars, daytime brunches on workdays, always dressed like someone chasing a high, not a husband. I noticed one consistent detail, a man. Same guy in 2 different photos. Dark hair. Always standing close. Never tagged. That was the key. I ran a reverse image search. 10 minutes later, I had a name. LinkedIn profile. Company. Married. Children. A senior manager at a partner firm we'd worked with before. I remembered shaking his hand at a holiday party 2 years ago. My wife introduced us. Back then, I thought nothing of it. Now, I remembered the way she touched his arm when she laughed. I created a burner social media account. Generic enough to pass. Sent her a message posing as someone interested in wellness coaching, something she advertised lately in her stories. Her reply came fast. Too fast. Full of emojis and overly friendly tone. She invited me to a private yoga group. I said I wanted to know if she was available for private sessions. She responded with, "I don't teach alone anymore," winking face. I screenshotted everything. No emotion. Just documentation. I wasn't building a case. I was carving a path. On Thursday night, she left her laptop open again. Careless. I didn't touch anything, but I sat near it, timing her return. I asked a simple question. Do you want to take a trip in April? Maybe somewhere quiet, like we used to? She paused. Her eyes flicked toward the screen, then to me. Maybe. I'll have to check my schedule. Her voice was calm, but I saw it, the brief flicker of calculation. She was weighing whether to lie or deflect. I changed nothing in my tone. Let me know. I miss how we used to travel. Then I leaned in and kissed her forehead. She smiled, but her body stiffened. She was scared not of me, but of being discovered. That told me I was getting close. The next day, I called a friend who owed me a favor. He worked in IT security. I asked him to help me track login activity on our shared home network. I wanted to know when and where her devices were connecting. We logged her phone accessing a remote desktop during hours she claimed to be offline. Files transferred. Photos. A few marked private. We couldn't open them. Didn't need to. The file names alone were obvious. I asked another friend, a mutual acquaintance of ours, to send her a flirty message from a burner account. Something polite but suggestive. I just wanted to see if she'd bite. She didn't reply directly, but blocked the account within minutes. Too fast. A guilty reflex. That night, I planted a small question at dinner. Do you think monogamy is natural? She blinked, caught off guard. Where did that come from? I shrugged. I read something today. About open relationships. Just made me think. She laughed nervously. Well, it's not for me, she said too quickly. Then added, not for us. I smiled and nodded, cutting into my steak, pretending I was satisfied. She looked relieved. That was her mistake. She assumed I believed her. She assumed silence meant defeat. What she didn't know was that every move she made gave me more leverage. Every lie sharpened the blade. Every glance, every deleted message, every whisper in the bathroom, I cataloged it all. Not to catch her. To prepare. Because I wasn't going to destroy her with rage. I was going to ruin her with precision. She thought we were going out to celebrate. I told her I had a surprise, a reservation at a rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind with candlelit tables and a view of the skyline that made everything below feel small and irrelevant. She dressed carefully, not for me, but for the version of herself she liked to present to the world. polished, radiant, untouchable. I watched her from across the room as she adjusted her earrings, sprayed perfume onto her wrists, and smiled into the mirror like someone preparing for a performance. I didn't compliment her. I just said, "You ready?" and handed her coat. The restaurant was crowded, warm, alive with conversation and clinking glasses. I'd reserved a corner table near the glass, enough privacy for the show, but still with an audience. She ordered wine before I even sat down, leaned across the table, and said, "So what's the surprise?" I looked at her for a long moment. "It'll come soon." She laughed, probably thinking I'd arranged flowers or music. She was still playing the role, still thinking she had control. 5 minutes into dinner, our waiter appeared, not with food, but with a small black envelope. He handed it to her with a smile, said, "From your husband," and walked away. She looked at me, confused, then opened it. Inside were 3 printed photographs. The first showed her walking into a hotel with a man's hand on the small of her back. The second, the two of them through a window, silhouettes close together. The third, her face, close to his, unmistakable, lips near his neck. For a second, everything stopped. She blinked, slowly, as if trying to wake from a dream. Her fingers trembled, but she tried to recover, sliding the photos back into the envelope like it would make them disappear. "This isn't what it looks like," she said. I said nothing. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "He was just a friend. We were talking. I didn't get involved with him, I swear." I tilted my head slightly. "Talking. That's what you call it." She flushed. "It was a mistake. A moment. I didn't mean for it to go that far." I picked up my glass. "You've been meeting him for months. The same hotel. Same time. Same lies." Her expression shifted, just slightly, from panic to calculation. "Maybe if you'd been more present," she said. "Maybe if you didn't act like a roommate, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." I smiled. Cold. Precise. "So it's my fault you're a liar?" She crossed her arms. "You don't understand what it's like. You're always so composed. So in control." I felt invisible. I nodded slowly. "And spending time with someone else made you feel seen?" She said nothing. I leaned forward, voice even. "I saw everything, long before you realized I was watching. The photos. The messages. The hotel bookings on our joint card. You left a trail so obvious, it insulted my intelligence." She swallowed hard. "Are you going to make a scene?" I looked around the restaurant, then back at her. "No. You already did." Her face fell. For the first time, her mask cracked, not from fear, but from the realization that I wasn't angry. I wasn't wounded. I was done. I reached into my coat and placed her wedding ring on the table. She stared at it like it was a loaded gun. "What's this?" she asked, voice shaky. "That's your surprise," I said. "It no longer belongs in this story." She looked around again, suddenly small, unsure. "Please. We can fix this. We can talk." I stood. "You had months to talk. You chose silence. You chose lies. You chose him." She stood too, desperate now. "Don't throw everything away. We had years." "No," I interrupted, quiet but firm. "You threw it away. I just finally noticed where it landed." She looked at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. "That made 2 of us." I turned and walked out, the sound of my shoes against the marble floor far louder than her silence. I didn't look back. Not when she whispered my name. Not when she started to follow. I'd already said everything. She wanted drama. She got distance. And that was far worse. She showed up the next morning, standing on my doorstep like nothing had shattered. Her face was a carousel of expressions: offended, wounded, apologetic, desperate. She opened with defense, of course. "Seriously? You're doing this over a few pictures? You're blowing this out of proportion like some overdramatic teenager." Her voice was sharp, accusatory, like she was trying to wrestle the power back with volume. She wanted a reaction, wanted me to yell, to argue, to give her something messy to fight against. I just stood there, quiet, steady, watching her. And that silence unnerved her more than any outburst ever could. Then she switched tones, trying softness. "You don't get it." I felt so alone. "You always looked through me like I was furniture in the house." I needed to feel like I still mattered. Her eyes welled up, not tears of guilt, but of frustration. The kind of tears that come when the lies stop working. I didn't flinch. She tried again, this time with venom. "You smothered me. You, and your perfect routines and your quiet judgment. Do you know how exhausting that was? I felt like I was drowning in your predictability." I let her words settle in the air. Then calmly, "So you chose the first man who opened a window?" That stopped her. She wasn't expecting logic. She was expecting fire. And when she didn't get it, her composure cracked. She started pacing, picking things up and putting them down, searching for something control, maybe. Or her version of it. "You can't seriously throw everything away like this," she snapped. "You're not that cold." I raised an eyebrow. "You think this is cold?" "I haven't even started being cold." Her face paled. Then, in a quieter voice, she tried again. "It was a mistake. One mistake. I didn't plan it. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go that far." I tilted my head. "You didn't plan it, but you scheduled it, paid for it, and lied about it for months. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle." Her voice trembled now. "Can we just talk? You're the one who always wanted to fix things. You always forgave." I stayed silent, and that silence tore through her like glass. She tried another angle blame. "You pushed me to this. You and your boring life, your quiet house, your safe little routines. I needed something real." I gave her the smallest nod. "So you went looking for fake." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing. She was unraveling. "I gave you years," she hissed, desperation creeping into her voice. "I stood by you when no one else did. I was there when you had nothing. I didn't blink. And when we built something, you turned around and shared it with a stranger. That's not loyalty. That's opportunism." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I'd beg, cry, plead for answers. Instead, I just watched her disintegrate. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, her voice cracking. "To crawl? To beg? Is that what it takes?" I stepped past her and opened the door. "I want you to understand that I owe you nothing. Not a conversation, not closure, not even kindness." She stood frozen. "You've changed," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending." And with that, I left her standing in the same space where she once lied to me with a smile. Now she stood with trembling hands, an empty voice, and the unbearable truth she no longer held anything over me. Not love. Not guilt. Not power. I didn't act out of rage. That's where most men fail. They react too soon, let their emotions bleed all over the evidence. I moved with precision, quietly, efficiently, like a surgeon preparing for a clean cut. The first thing I did was meet with a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a specialist in high-asset divorces and marital fraud. I brought him everything. Dates, transactions, screenshots, the GPS logs, her messages to her friend, her laughable attempts to twist the narrative. He reviewed it all in silence, then looked up and said, "She won't know what hit her." That was the first time I allowed myself to feel anything close to satisfaction. Next, I changed every password, bank accounts, shared cloud storage, insurance policies, even the streaming services. Small things, yes, but they mattered. She had grown used to comfort, to ease, to shared convenience. It would be death by 1,000 cuts. I froze the joint account she used most, left only a fraction in her personal card, just enough to keep her from noticing the change too early. Then I redirected my salary to a new, undisclosed account. The car she used, the one registered in my name, was picked up from her office parking lot while she was inside, working late. A simple tow order. She messaged me that evening, asking if the car had been stolen. I responded hours later with, "It was never yours." That same night, I visited her parents. Sat across from them with the same calm I perfected over the past few weeks. I didn't shout or play the victim. I simply showed them everything, her friend's name, his marital status, the hotel visits, the messages where she mocked me behind my back. Her father's hands trembled. Her mother wept. They tried to defend her at first. Maybe it's not what it looks like, but truth has a way of silencing even the most desperate denial. I left them with a flash drive and a final sentence, "She'll need you more than ever soon." Then came the social circle. We shared many mutual friends, and I knew which ones believed in loyalty. I scheduled coffee, lunch, casual drinks, one by one. I told them the story without bitterness, just facts. Evidence. Timelines. Her lies laid bare, without exaggeration. I didn't ask anyone to take sides. I just let the truth do what it always does, divide. I watched their eyes change as they realized who she had become. I could already feel the ground cracking beneath her feet. Finally, I filed the divorce papers, with full documentation of betrayal, asset misuse, and reputational damage. I submitted requests to nullify her claim to the house, arguing that her contributions had been minimal, and backed by detailed financial records showing that 95% of all payments came from my income. I attached the screenshots of her messages where she bragged about how easy I was to fool, how she'd landed a free ride. The lawyer smiled as he submitted it. She's not getting a dime more than you allow. For the final touch, I sent a private message to her friend's wife. Nothing dramatic. Just a folder titled, "For Your Eyes Only." Inside, everything. Dates, photos, names, hotel addresses. All time-stamped. No commentary. Just truth. I didn't need to manipulate anyone. I let reality deliver the blow. And when it landed hard. The next day, her friend stopped responding to her messages. Blocked her. His wife filed for separation and froze their accounts. She tried to call me. Multiple times. I didn't answer. Her emails ranged from pleading to furious to pitiful. "How could you do this to me?" she wrote. I smiled at the irony. She still believed she was the victim. I left her with just enough comfort to think she still had a chance, just enough silence to breed anxiety, then I shut the door all at once. She came home that weekend to find the locks changed. A box of her things sat outside the door. No note. No goodbye. Just absence. Total, brutal absence. I had already moved into a temporary apartment across the city, simple, clean, mine. The papers were in process. The accounts were safe. The narrative was mine to control. I wasn't running from her. I was erasing her. And she felt it. Every hour. Every unanswered call. Every friend who stopped replying. Every family member who now looked at her with a mixture of disappointment and quiet shame. She wanted drama. I gave her strategy. She wanted chaos. I gave her consequence. She thought I'd fight. I chose to dismantle. And the best part? She still didn't understand how I stayed so calm. That was the point. She never understood who she married. But now, finally, she would. She walked beside me like nothing had changed, head held high, lips painted red, dressed like she was stepping onto a stage. The reunion was held at a classy hotel downtown, one of those places that smelled like money and old memories. She thought this night would be her comeback, her way of rewriting the story by showing up with me on her arm like everything was fine. She still believed that appearances could fix what truth had already destroyed. But what she didn't know was that everyone here already knew. I hadn't made a dramatic post or some vengeful announcement. I didn't need to. Truth, when released in just the right amount, spreads better than gossip. I had spoken to just the right people, quietly, respectfully, and with receipts. And those people spoke to others. By the time we arrived, the room had already chosen a side. Hers wasn't it. We stepped in, and the temperature shifted. Smiles that used to greet her froze into awkward nods. People glanced at her, then quickly looked away, like they were embarrassed for her. Her closest friend, her ride-or-die since college, walked past her without even a glance and came straight to me. She hugged me warmly, whispered, "I saw the messages. If you ever need anything, I'm here," and walked away, leaving my wife stunned in the middle of the room like a mannequin that didn't belong in the display. We took our seats at the long table, surrounded by familiar faces. She tried to smile, to join the conversation, to throw in old jokes and charming asides, but her words floated in the air like dust. People responded politely, but their eyes were on me. She felt it. Her posture shifted. She started fidgeting with her napkin, her voice losing its usual performative smoothness. Then came the first blow. One of the guys, someone we'd vacationed with as couples, looked her dead in the eye and said, "It's sad how someone can have everything and still choose the worst." She tried to laugh it off, but it cracked. Her hand trembled as she reached for her wine. Someone else chimed in, this time louder. "How's Andre? Still teaching yoga, or just giving private sessions?" Laughter followed, but not the kind she was used to. Not the flattering, playful kind. It was cruel. Sharp. She froze. Her smile faltered. She looked at me, maybe hoping I'd say something, defend her, redirect the room. I didn't. I just sat there, calm, collected, sipping my drink while the world she built on lies began to collapse in real time. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. One message. One name. The man she'd risked everything for had just blocked her. She stood up suddenly, her voice sharp. "You people don't know anything. This is private. It's between us." Her voice cracked mid-sentence. The room fell into silence. That's when I placed my glass gently on the table, looked up at her, and said evenly, Private ends where betrayal begins. That was it. No shouting. No revenge speech. Just truth delivered without emotion. And that was what truly destroyed her. She sat back down, visibly shaking. The energy had drained from her body. Her mask had slipped entirely. She looked around the room and realized no one was looking back. No one was rushing to comfort her. No one was defending her. Not her friends. Not her colleagues. Not even her parents, who were sitting 3 tables away, avoiding her gaze. I remained at the table, speaking with old friends, answering questions, smiling occasionally. I wasn't the one who had to leave. I wasn't the one wearing shame like a second skin. She left eventually, quietly, alone, heels echoing down the hallway like fading applause after a failed performance. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I stayed exactly where I was, surrounded by people who finally saw the truth. She hadn't just lost me. She lost the illusion of control, of admiration, of innocence. She lost everything. And I didn't have to raise my voice to make it happen. The second confrontation wasn't planned. It never is. It happened 3 days after the reunion, when everything had already unraveled and she was desperate enough to believe that coming to my office, uninvited, would somehow fix the irreparable. She arrived in full performance mode again, but this time the cracks were impossible to hide. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice already trembling before she opened her mouth. I had just finished a meeting when she stormed through the glass doors, followed closely by the receptionist who kept apologizing. I waved her off. I didn't need security. Not for this. We need to talk, she said, loud enough that a few heads turned from the open workspace. I motioned her into the conference room. She slammed the door shut behind us. How could you humiliate me like that, she hissed. In front of everyone? Her voice cracked mid-sentence, but the fury didn't. You think you're some kind of hero now? You think exposing me makes you better? I didn't answer. I just stared at her, tired. So tired of the theater. You already made yourself the villain, I said, calm as ever. All I did was stop covering for you. That's when the shouting began. She threw her purse onto the table and pointed a shaking finger at me. You've always been this cold, calculating robot. I made one mistake, and you've turned it into a public execution. I laughed once, quiet, dry. You made one mistake, repeatedly, over months, in different hotels, with someone else's husband. That wasn't a mistake. That was a campaign. She started pacing, pulling at her hair like she wanted to tear the guilt out by force. My parents won't even look at me. My job, do you even know what you've done? HR called me in yesterday. People are whispering in the halls. Clients are backing out. I folded my arms. Actions have consequences. You were fine with the lies. Now live with the truth. The door opened abruptly. Her father entered. Then her mother. Then, unbelievably, Andre. The man himself. The yoga friend. Her mother's face was pale, tight with emotion. Her father looked like he hadn't slept in days. Andre looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. What's going on? Her father demanded. We tried calling. You blocked us. She whirled around, pointing at me like I was a weapon. He turned everyone against me. He sent you all that stuff to punish me. Her father snapped. Stop. Just stop. We saw the messages. The receipts. The videos. You didn't make a mistake. You lived a lie. Her mother was crying silently. I stood still, watching the implosion. You think he's innocent? She screamed, gesturing at me. He ignored me for years. He made me feel like a ghost. Andre finally stepped forward, voice quiet but firm. You told me you were separated. You said the marriage was over. I didn't know, she cut him off. Don't you dare play innocent now. You knew exactly what you were doing. He backed away, shaking his head. No, I'm done. You lied to both of us. The room was electric, full of tension and boiling shame. She turned to her parents. You're just going to stand there? And blame me? Her father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You betrayed your husband. You lied to your family. And you destroyed your own life. Don't you dare expect applause. She stepped back, chest heaving, eyes darting from face to face like a cornered animal. You're all turning on me. All of you. Her voice was breaking now. He manipulated this. He set me up. I finally spoke again, low and steady. No, I just stopped protecting you. And then, like someone pulled the final thread, she broke. I gave you my life, she screamed. I gave everything. And now I have nothing because of you. I took a slow breath. No, You have nothing because of you. She lunged toward me, but her father stepped in. Enough, he said. Go home. I don't have a home, she shouted, hands shaking. He changed the locks. Because you gave him no choice, her mother whispered, almost too softly. We warned you. Audrey slipped out of the room, silent. Her parents followed, and she stood there, alone again, in a room full of ghosts she created herself. I watched her try to gather her things, drop them, mutter under her breath, and finally slump into a chair. Defeated. She had nothing left to say, nothing that could change the damage already done. I stood, walked to the door, and before leaving, looked back one last time. You always thought I'd be the one left behind. You were wrong. Then I walked out, calm, unbothered, and very, very free. She faded quickly after that day. Not in some dramatic movie-style collapse, but in the quiet, humiliating way that real life deals with people who burn every bridge and then act surprised when they're left standing in smoke. She lost her job 2 weeks later. HR didn't cite the affair directly, of course not, but they reevaluated her position in light of recent internal conflicts and opted not to renew her contract. Translation: her reputation was radioactive. Clients started backing away, coworkers stopped including her in conversations, and her name stopped appearing on project emails. Word had traveled, and fast. Friends unfollowed her, blocked her stories, removed her from group chats. Even the ones who used to gossip with her now treated her like a bad smell in a closed room. No one wanted to be associated with someone that toxic, not because she betrayed me, but because she pretended she hadn't, then blamed everyone else when it blew up in her face. Her parents stopped inviting her over. Her mother texted sometimes, short, hesitant messages that felt more like obligation than care. Her father never answered her calls. She moved out of our city after a month of silence. No goodbye. Just disappeared. I only knew because someone sent me a picture of her working at a small coffee shop in a town 2 hours away. She wore a cap low over her face, apron smudged with syrup, wiping tables like she wanted to vanish into the floorboards. Audrey was gone too. As soon as the comfort, the shield, the illusion of excitement dried up, he vanished. No explanations. No confrontation. Just gone. She messaged me a week after the move. One sentence: I still love you. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, that's strange. Because I can't even remember your name. She didn't reply. Not immediately. But the next day she called. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. The 5th time, I answered. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted her to hear mine. She was crying before she even said hello. Please, she started. Just let me explain. Just talk to me like a person. I said nothing. Just breathed. She went on. I've lost everything. Everyone. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I keep seeing your face when I close my eyes. I know I messed up. I know I was selfish. But you were always the one who brought me back. You were home. There was a pause. A quiet, broken silence. I don't want to be this version of me anymore, she whispered. I want to go back. To who we were. I waited a moment, let her sink into the silence between us. Then I spoke. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you lost the life you destroyed. She began to protest, but I cut in. You want forgiveness to fix your guilt. But I'm not here to help you heal from the wounds you gave me. Her voice cracked. Please. Just once. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't care. I didn't need to answer. That night, she showed up at my door. Soaked from the rain. Hair clinging to her cheeks. Eyes swollen. Makeup running. She looked nothing like the woman who once stood there in control, in power, pretending to be untouchable. She looked small. Tired. Hollowed out. Please, she said again, her voice barely more than breath. Please just look at me. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and stared at her like a stranger. Because that's what she was now. A stranger wearing the skin of someone I used to know. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. You know what hurts the most? I said, voice cold and clear. That I spent years trying to protect a version of you that never even existed. Her lip trembled. Her knees nearly buckled. I thought I could come back, she whispered. I thought if I lost everything else, I'd still have you. I looked her in the eye. You lost me the moment you chose him over honesty. She said nothing. She couldn't. She just stood there, trembling, waiting for something pity, a soft word, an invitation back. I gave her none. I stepped back inside, shut the door without slamming it, and let the sound of it end everything. And now, I'll ask you one thing. The only thing that matters. What would you have done in my place?